How do you take a system that you think is against you and turn it on its head and make it for you? If all you see is a drug dealer, a rap star, or an athlete as the only symbols of prosperity, aspiration, and success, then guess what you want to be? There's a difference between being broke and being poor. Being broke is economic, but being poor is a disabling frame of mind, a depressed condition of your spirit, and you must vow never to be poor again. You cannot have 3.5 billion people who do not have as much wealth as 85 of the wealthiest people in the world. That's not sustainable. Freedom and liberty and justice and fair play is not a thing, it's a feeling. And today, freedom, the definition of freedom is self-determination. You cannot self-determine yourself in the modern world except through commerce and economics. Everything from the time you get up to the time you go to bed involves commerce and finance. But we don't understand either, most of us, which means that we are basically prisoners. Small business owners, entrepreneurs, and shoot-ups and startups generate all new job growth in America, the largest economy in the world. So you need this middle class dream and reality so that people can go up the ladder. It is a radical movement of common sense that says you have got to give people the memo, the language of money. Some people got the memo, and there are probably 5 billion people plus on this planet who never got the memo, don't even know it exists. Project 5117 of Operation Hope between now and 2020 will deliver the memo. We will create America's first national private banker for the poor, the working class, and the struggling middle class. Oh, people say I'm nuts, and that's a compliment, because they said that Steve Jobs was nuts. And they said that Ted Turner was nuts. And they said that Bill Gates was nuts. And they said that my hero, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was nuts. Let me tell you what, I'll take it. The book, How the Poor Can Save Capitalism, is not counterintuitive. It's history. It's not political in any way, shape, or form. It's not black and it's not white. It's not about rich and it's not about poor. It's not about west and it's not about east. It's about human nature. This is about a sustainable life. Living a life you can actually be proud of. What if I told you that you actually were not at a conference? That this was not a normal meeting? And it's not a normal meeting because Jacques Attali has organized it, and he's no normal man. As we would say in America, in the black church, Jacques Attali does not walk on water, but he knows where the stones are. He's a wise man. I'm a fan of Jacques Attali, and that's why I'm here. But I'm also a fan of another man named Abraham Lincoln, arguably the best president that America ever had. And he unpacked poverty, but nobody knows it. March 3rd, 1865. There's a reason why poor people are poor, and it's not what you've been told. March 3rd, 1865, after the Civil War, after the Emancipation Proclamation, which most people know the story of, Abraham Lincoln signed a piece of legislation in the White House called the Freedmen's Bureau Act. The Freedmen's Bureau Act created the Freedmen's Bank. This is where it gets interesting. The Freedmen's Bank. I want you to think about what Jacques Attali is doing in the suburbs of Paris. I want you to think about what I'm about to tell you about what we're doing in the inner cities of America. The Freedmen's Bank's mission in 1865, after the Civil War, after slavery, after emancipation, was to teach freed slaves about money. Now, let's think about this. The President of the United States, arguably the best we've ever had, thought the most important thing he could do for recently emancipated slaves was to teach them about the free enterprise system, to teach them the language of money, call it financial literacy, and to introduce them into a sense of self-awareness and ownership and opportunity. The backstory here is something called 40 Acres and a Mule. I won't take you through that history. We don't have the time, but you can research it yourself. 3 months before that, the president had given every freed slave 40 acres and a mule. The slaves didn't want a government program. They didn't want a handout. When they were asked, what do you want after slavery? They said, I want land. I want to be able to do for myself. And the finance and the land was the vision to come together to introduce them into an era of job creation and self-sustainability. Lincoln was killed 5 weeks later. April 16th, 1865, he was murdered. The plan fell away. And literally, you pop your fingers and we fast forward 100 years. And my mentor, my friend, Ambassador Andrew Young, his friend, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., had launched upon a campaign called the Poor People's Campaign. And Dr. King said this. This was not a black movement, by the way. This was about all people. There are more poor white people in America than poor anybody else. I'm going to talk about how poverty is not what you think it is in just a moment. But in 1968, Dr. King said this. I'm here to redeem the soul of America from the triple evils of war, racism, and poverty. And then he said this. You cannot legislate goodness. And you cannot pass a law to force someone to respect you. The only way to social justice in a capitalist country is ownership. That was 1968. He was killed April 4th, 1968, before the first march on Washington. And now we have today. And this book, How the Poor Can Save Capitalism. And here's my message. It's not like the poor and the underserved and the working class and the teetering class, or what I call the near poor, could be poor, should be poor, might be poor, would be poor, and may be poor. The teetering class with too much month at the end of their money, which are most people. It's not like they got the memo on free enterprise and capitalism and screwed it up. They never got the memo. That's the big aha. They never got the memo on how this system works. That's why I love positive economy. That's why I love what Jacques Attali is doing. So let me now go very quickly into what poverty really is. It's an hourglass. Here's wealth, high self-esteem. Half of wealth is belief and confidence in yourself. And then you've got role models above that. Why am I a businessman? My father was. Why do I believe in myself? My mother told me to. My mother told me she loved me every day of my life, and I believed it. And then you've got environment. My environment was a very positive environment, was a very uplifting environment. Even though I lived in a so-called poor neighborhood, I had great role models. And then you've got aspiration. Aspiration is a code word for hope. And the most dangerous person in the world is a person with no hope. Of course, hope's my middle name, literally. And then you've got opportunity. With high aspiration, like this beautiful facility, When you look up, the sky seems almost endless. That opportunity opens up the world. Poverty is the opposite thing. Poverty is have low self-esteem. If you don't know who you are at 9 in the morning, by 9 at night, somebody's going to tell you. It's low self-esteem, lack of confidence in yourself, and it's crappy role models. I mentioned in the video that where I grew up had positive role models, but if you're in the suburbs of France or you're in parts of the Middle East or parts of Africa or the inner cities in America, everybody's aspirational, but if all you see in your neighborhoods as symbols of success are rap stars, athletes, and drug dealers, then why is anybody surprised that a person grows up and that's what they want to be? They don't wake up saying, I want to be a dumb person. They wake up looking for roads to success, and if that's all they see, then that's what they want to be. I was in Silicon Valley, and I asked this question. For those who believe in a higher power, I said, do you think God put Steve Jobs' sort of brilliance only in the Silicon Valley, in a high net worth, upper middle class, highly educated, mainstream suburb in California? Or did God drop that brilliance literally everywhere? A drug dealer may be immoral, unethical. There's a special place in hell reserved for somebody who sells death to their own community, a drug dealer. But if you're a drug dealer, a successful drug dealer, one thing you are not is dumb. You understand import, export, finance, marketing, wholesale, retail, customer service, security, territory, logistics. That's funny. I don't know about you, but you need to laugh. You need to relax. I'm giving you some funny stuff here. Even translated is funny. So a drug dealer is just an illegal entrepreneur. But there's brilliance there that we're not tapping. Let me now come to the crux of the message. 70% of the U.S. economy is living from paycheck to paycheck. As an example, I'm talking globally now, but I'm giving you the U.S. as a quick, easy example. The largest economy in the world is still the U.S. economy. 70% of that economy is living from paycheck to paycheck. So if you're living in New York City and making $70,000 a year, you're struggling to make ends meet. You're living in Washington, D.C., making $50,000 a year, you're struggling to make ends meet. And 90% of those who make $50,000 a year or less, half of the U.S., takes 90% of that money, puts it back in the economy because they can't afford not to. So 70% of the U.S. economy is consumer-driven. The largest economy in the world is living on the back of the working poor and the struggling class and the struggling middle class. Another interesting statistic. You heard one of the early speakers talk about Henry Ford and his innovation around the automobile. Really, everything was created for the wealthy and codified by the poor. Automobiles created for the wealthy, but it was only when everybody got a chance to own an automobile did that market economy grow. Cell phones. A cell phone 15 years ago was a Motorola brick, 10 pounds, on your shoulder, $3,000 US, 45 cents a minute. Now, Africa will probably be the first wireless continent. There are 800 million cell phones for almost 1 billion people. Folks with no running water in Africa have a cell phone. And they're not giving cell phones away. Those are market-driven economies. These are cell phone companies that are growing because people want this device and can use it, and it's enhancing their life. And everything that we put our hands on was started for the wealthy. Restaurants, created for the wealthy, but now you have a restaurant in a gas station. Let's now talk about very quickly where jobs come from. In America, there are 26 million companies. 6 million create one job or more. 6 million companies. Of the 6 million that create one job or more, how many employ 10,000 people or more? 974. So all job growth in America comes from startups, shoot-ups, small business owners, and entrepreneurs. And in year 3 through year 7. And you have this enormous, in Los Angeles, 97% of all companies in Los Angeles have 100 employees or less. 97%. The largest economy in the world is driven by small business. But that's not just in America. Look in, the word entrepreneur comes from France. That's a French word. Every big business was once a small one. Africa doesn't need more aid, it needs more taxpayers. Africa needs a generation of taxpayers. The Middle East, the Arab Spring, you've been told that was Islamic extremism. That's a lie. That was a guy named Mohammed in Tunisia who had a cart business. He just wanted to take care of his family, financial dignity. And the cart was taken away from him. The authorities, I won't call them law enforcement, the authorities said, you don't have a permit. He said, how do I get a permit? They said, you don't have a permit, there are no rules for it, we make the rules. He lost hope. He went into the square, set himself on fire. Within 30 days, the entire government in Tunisia failed. That then triggered the Arab Spring across the entire Middle East. My point is, it wasn't about Islamic extremism, it was about economics. It was about a job. The world needs jobs. Nothing stops a bullet like a job. So what we're doing in America is starting a private bank for the working poor, the underserved, and the teetering middle class. We're inside of bank branches. We're raising credit scores 120 points. For those of you familiar with the U.S. model, an inner city, a poor neighborhood has a check casher next to a payday loan lender. This is the same in suburbs of France. A check casher next to a payday loan lender, next to a rent-to-own store, next to a title lender, next to a liquor store. That's not racism. That's target marketing. They're targeting a 500 credit score customer. It's not race, it's class. So what we're doing is robbing them of their customer. We're moving credit scores 120 points from 550 to 670 and moving a check cashing customer into a banking customer. Moving a renter into a homeowner. The guy who made this suit, we put in business by giving him a $35,000 loan, raising his credit scores, giving him entrepreneurship skills, and investing in him. He's now doing more than $1 million a year in revenue and adding to GDP. So we can turn a poor neighborhood into an emerging market simply by raising credit scores, raising self-esteem, raising role models, aspiration. In public schools, my last example, the dropout rate globally is atrocious. What we're doing in public schools is something called a Hope Business Box in a Box Academy. We're going in the worst public schools, so-called worst public schools, doing a course in financial literacy. So finishing the work that Abraham Lincoln tried to start, finishing the work that Dr. King tried to start, finishing the work that my friend Jacques Attali is trying to start here. A course in financial literacy, a course in dignity, values. Me and the Crown Prince of Norway, Håkon Magnus, are doing this in 68 countries around the world. A course in entrepreneurship, 25 businesses you can start for $500 or less. Now it gets interesting. The kids pick a business idea. They get in front of an audience like this. There's a timer like this. The kids get 2 minutes to pitch their idea. Think Shark Tank for kids. The kids are on stage, local judges watching them. The endorphins kick on the right side of that kid's head around hope and aspiration and dignity, and somebody's paying attention to me and focusing on me, and they pitch their idea. And when they win the pitch, we fund the business up to $500. We give them a business role model. Gallup measures their strengths, not their weaknesses. What are they good at on the front end? We give them a business role model. We give them a bank account. The only way you can get the money we award you is to put the money into a bank account. So now the kid has an experience that's positive around a positive economy. And then they start up their business with the help of that role model, and then Gallup measures the impact on the backside. Here's what we found. Doubling of everything. Kids who go through this program now want to graduate high school because they're connecting education with aspiration. Kids who go through this program at 30% want to say they want to start a business. On the other end, 80% after the program say they want to start a business. 40% on the front end believe that they can change the world. 90% on the back end believe that they can change the world. 25% on the front end say that they're not afraid of risk. 91% on the back end say they're not afraid of risk. Their self-esteem is up. And here's the most important part, a doubling. Half of all kids say education may allow me to make more money. 80% of all kids on the back end say the more education I get, the more money I'll make in a respectable, dignified, sustainable way. You can do well and do good. You can do well by doing good. The youth in the suburbs of France are not your problem. They're your opportunity. Those are the job creators. Those are the entrepreneurs. Those are the future. Every big business was once a small one. What's the largest retailer in the world? What's the largest retailer in the world? Walmart. What's the largest of anything in this country? It is something that serves the poor and the least of these God's children. I'm out of time, but I'm not out of hope. I hope that you leave this conference today and not just say I want to be a PhD, but I want to be a PH dude too. I hope you leave this conference today and you decide to find a way to help Jacques Attali with his mission, because helping Jacques Attali helps France, and helping France helps the world, and helping the poor saves capitalism, saves the economy, and creates new jobs and opportunity for all. May God bless you.
It's hard to know someone more positive than John. Thank you, John. Thank you very much. Nous allons faire une pause. Je remercie tous ceux qui ont parlé maintenant. J'aurai beaucoup de choses à dire en conclusion ce soir, donc j'espère que vous serez tous là et plus nombreux encore ce soir parce que nous avons des choses très importantes à nous dire encore. Je voulais juste vous signaler qu'il y a un débat que nous avons lancé au début de ce forum. C'est un débat sur des propositions que nous voulons lancer, un mouvement, une campagne que nous voulons lancer à partir de ce soir sur des thèmes que nous avons mis au débat. Vous avez, pour beaucoup d'entre vous, déjà pris le document qui vous permet de vous exprimer, choisir parmi les 12 propositions que nous avons mis sur la table ou d'autres que vous voudriez dire. S'il vous plaît, si vous avez déjà pris ce document, mettez votre vote dans les urnes qui sont là, sinon allez prendre le document et votez. Il est très important que ce mouvement que nous allons lancer soit le résultat de nos 3 jours de travail et de vos points de vue. Merci, à tout à l'heure.
Merci, merci cher Jacques. Alors on va faire une petite pause, je vois que tout le monde se lève, mais ce n'est qu'une pause de 10 minutes et on se retrouve ensuite. Une petite pause café, une petite pause cigarette pour ceux qui fument et on se retrouve dans une dizaine de minutes avec d'autres intervenants de qualité. Merci beaucoup.